Un aplauso, porfa. Gracias a todo, especialmente gracias a Hugo y Prodem y todo para invitarme. Y hoy gracias a Denisa, adelante de todo, para traducir todo lo que me diga. Y ahora, lo siento, pero vamos a cambiar a English. So, gracias. Today, I would like to challenge all of us in how we think about artificial intelligence. I want us to transition from thinking about it as simply a tool to thinking about it as a system, a strategy, and a mentality rooted in real-world transformation. Because right now, there exists quite a gap between AI hype and real-world value. And value, that's going to be our operative word today. And in kind of a poetic way, we're going to use its translation both in English and in Espanol. Because in English, valor means with bravery, without fear. And of course, in Espanol, it means to have value. So today we are going to learn and be brave in our digital transformation journey using artificial intelligence towards attaining real-world value. Ya vamos. Today's agenda is very simple and straightforward. We're going to break through all of the illusions and the misconceptions that distort true AI integrations. We're going to assess the landscape in businesses from what keeps them from adopting artificial intelligence, and together we'll learn how to build not with AI hype, but with true Valor. A little bit about my agency, Man of the World. We've had the privilege and the pleasure with working with some of the most transformative, cutting-edge technology companies in the world. We've helped them raise millions of dollars in venture capital. We've helped them get into some of the most prestigious accelerators. And working with such cutting-edge companies, we too, as an organization, had to stay on the cutting edge. And that's why in the middle of 2022, we decided to learn about a little unknown something called generative AI. In fact, we ended up, or myself, on behalf of Man of the World, writing one of the first articles that included ChatGPT in November of 2022. Because the moment we learned about this transformative technology, we knew it was going to change not just our work in marketing, branding, and communication, but we knew it was going to change the entire landscape. And in this journey of learning everything we could about generative AI and even moving our agency to a place we know it's going to have incredible value in Los Angeles, California, we also looked at places that we thought this was going to transform fundamentally the landscape of technology and countries that were ready to embrace it. And that's what led us to LATAM. We felt that the business spirit and the indomitable creativity of Latin America made generative AI a prime technology to work with everyone from startups to businesses to governments in this region. And it turns out the numbers backed us up. This is a report from High Ventures, a well-known venture capital company in Mexico City. In a poll that they were part of and took, they saw that receptiveness towards artificial intelligence was higher amongst Latin American countries as compared to the rest of the world. Shout out Chile right there. to our hosts. The other very striking statistic that let us know that we were on the right track were the STEM graduates from LATAM universities. Of course, STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. And catching up to and closing the gap with the United States. So this creative spirit, this entrepreneurship mindset, and all the ingredients were making LATAM ready and prime to adopt generative AI. But there is a reality right now. One moment, and this was just over 1 year ago, we're reading sensationalized headlines saying billion-dollar companies are getting rid of their entire customer support teams and replacing it solely with generative AI. And then just this month, 1 year later, they're hiring people again and changing course, going back from completely artificial intelligence back to hiring people. What gives? Well, the truth is, and this is from a McKinsey report, AI adoption is incredibly high amongst businesses. 78% are saying in this study that they are using and working with artificial intelligence. However, the cost savings and the return or the revenue are rather paltry. So again, we're seeing mass adoption and incredible interest. But right now, those returns are less than stellar. And that's because there are three main misconceptions around generative AI adoption that we identified, and we will discuss today. The first is what we call the magic wand fallacy. Thinking that just bringing in generative AI into your organization is somehow going to magically transform everything that you do. The second is not mapping this technology towards what's important to your business, or what we call KPIs. It'd be like driving a Ferrari 100 miles an hour with your eyes closed. You'll end up somewhere, but who knows where that is? And is it important to your business? You'll also spend a lot of money in that process. The third, which might be the most important, is the mindset. Have you properly got your team and your customers on board with this digital transformation? Because so many times we've seen wonderful technology get stalled when the mentality in your organization and your customers are not there, when they haven't been brought up to speed as to why you're doing what you're doing. So I'm sure nobody has their cell phone handy, but if you do, we're going to take a quick pause, and I suppose the first 50 people who scan this will be able to participate. We'd like to just take a quick poll within this learned room of businesses and entrepreneurs to assess where your organization stands in this digital transformation journey. So we'll give you another 20 seconds or so to scan. And then I will have Sabrina take us to the poll. So this is in real time right now. So it looks like in this room, data privacy and workforce displacement are leading our concerns. We'll let this fill in for just another minute. What are your top concerns? Okay. So obviously there's concerns when you bring in artificial intelligence into your organization. And what is that? So it looks like data privacy is going to win the day with workforce displacement as a second. The next question is, what are you most enthusiastic about with generative AI? And Wow, we have, okay, making better decisions as our leader and being more productive and efficient as driving those. So being more productive and efficient is not a surprise. That's generally one of the top. And finally, the third, which I don't know if anyone has gotten to yet, but what are the biggest operational blockers that your organization has in implementing generative AI? All right, so high implementation costs, data privacy, again, leading the charge. I thought this was incredibly important for us, a group of people who have traveled from all over the world, who understand technology, to share in what they're interested in, what their blockers are in their organization, as well as what are their fears with implementing this. And you'll be able to access this over the next week or so you can see in real time what your peers here at ProDem were thinking. Sabrina, we can change back. And thank you all for participating with this. Do I click? Okay. Well, while we're waiting, let's go ProDem. Woo! Woo! They're just getting us back to the slides. Basically, you guys were right on par with a study that we were going to show right here from also the same report from High Ventures, which most people were most enthusiastic about their productivity gains when adding generative AI into their workflows. Of course, being more competitive and making better decisions were also up there, and I believe we're the top of our poll here today. Of course, there are risks. Explainability of AI was amongst the top here. Data privacy was also very, very big. And finally, the roadblocks. Issues with data privacy was basically the leader. And this is a very interesting chart as it shows some of the different mentalities between startups and larger corporations. So of course, in larger corporations, it was data privacy. And in startups, it was actually lack of technical talent. So knowing all of these component parts of what keeps meaningful, value-driven integration of generative AI into our organizations, we want to share a framework. And this framework is how we approach digital transformation in our organization and with our clients. Because we learned in the beginning all the fallacies of generative AI adoption, the expecting it to do everything, the roadblocks therein, and building without a purpose. So this is an important slide. I actually think I'll see a lot of people taking pictures. That's a great idea. So as you think about your organization, think about it from tasks, and we call this a task-based approach. So you want to divide your company and all the workflows therein into atomic units of work. What can you break one task down into bite-sized portions? Once you achieve that, you want to look at those component parts of a process and understand what part of that can be automated. Because even in one workflow, there might be 20 components. And maybe only 10 of those are ripe for AI. And this is where you'll really start to implement with purpose and with value. Of course, you want to then implement your strategy and measure the results, and from there, scale that implementation. I'll show a few quick case studies. This is from within my own organization, a marketing and branding agency. So one process that we do with every single client that comes through our door is we ingest all of the information about that company. We also conduct hours of interviews from CEOs all the way down to engineers and marketing to understand where the company is and where they'd like to go. In doing so, we understand everything about them. So we took this knowledge of doing this for years and put it into our own AI. So every time we work with a new company, we put it through our proprietary tuned AI on all the information that we've done, and we can create this messaging matrix, this bedrock for our companies faster and better. We spend more time creating something more valuable than ingesting the information, and the proof has been wonderful with our clients. Another one is from here in LATAM, a public company in Mexico who is one of our clients. They invested $14 million with Google and committed to that to implement AI. The problem is they didn't have a roadmap. They kind of used the magic wand fallacy and figured the more we spend, the faster it's going to go, the better off we are. So we were brought in to help them understand and take them through task-based approach processes and figure out where AI can have the most impact and start to implement that impact across their organization. It's important to kind of see the general landscape of artificial intelligence as well. There was 2 huge conferences over the past few weeks, Build 2025 and I/O by Google. Microsoft is implementing incredible agentic or AI agent processes that are going to even start integrating with WhatsApp, which is incredible. And Gemini Live came on and unleashed one of the most unbelievable generative AI video models around. We also know OpenAI very well in LATAM. We'll be with them in a few days in Mexico. They too are looking at LATAM as a very ripe place, learning where they can work with governments all the way down into everyday implementation. And this is a great quote written by Michael Nunez, a writer at VentureBeat, quoting the VP of Agents at Microsoft. It's all about breaking down these big processes into smaller ones and automating component parts of something big in order to create something meaningful. Usually this is the part I ask questions, but due to the amazing conversations that I had while here, I want you, everybody here, to ask yourself a question on behalf of your organization. Where can you implement generative AI to have the greatest impact in what you're doing? And don't just think about today's problems. Generative AI is going to fundamentally change how we do business. So think about the problems of tomorrow and how generative AI is going to help you shape those problems into actionable, valor-driven solutions. So remember, you're not alone. Everybody we saw has the same excitement and trepidations. For real value, remember, you require structure before scaling into something bigger. And true valor, bravery, and value means doing the hard work to build something meaningful and that will last. So remember, you're ready. So take the leap, dive off as an AI action figure, and implement generative AI meaningfully into your businesses. I want to thank you again. If we could remove the video so people can scan. I'm Peter Weltman from Man of the World, and let's build something fantastic together.